Welcome back, folks. Good to have you with us on another episode of A Plateful of Insights. Um, you know that feeling when you go for your annual blood work and everything comes back normal, but you don't really know what's going on. Something doesn't feel quite right. Standard tests really only scratch the surface. They're designed to confirm what a doctor may already suspect, not really to give the full picture of your health in some cases. Well, let me ask you this: what if you could actually look under the hood of what's going on inside your body and see changes happening before problems actually show up? And what if you could use that information to personalize your nutrition and lifestyle in real time? Wouldn't that be cool? That's what we're talking about today. We're exploring today with Dr. Rob Fraser, President and the Chief Scientific Officer, CSO. I got the S right. It's Chief Scientific Officer, right, Rob? Okay, good. Good. Of Molecular U. A little background on Rob. Rob co-founded the company after, and correct me if I got any of your intro, Rob, incorrect, because I'm just taking this from the website. So you helped launch Personalized Medicine Initiative in Canada, in at the forefront of many personalized medicine initiatives. You got a PhD from the University of Alberta. You've done training at Harvard Medical School, a thought leader, much experience in the biotech and pharma industry, and you've helped raise a ton of money and a lot of other really cool projects in the health innovation space, like what we're going to be talking about today. So today we'll walk through why we have Rob here is because he's at the top of a partnership that we have with Molecular U, and a really cool thing that we're offering at Revive Wellness that we want to get into and learn about, and provide all of you with information about as well. So, Rob, thank you very much for joining Laura and myself on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And very excited to speak to you and to your audience.
Love it. So, for all the listeners or watchers, if people are watching, why don't we start with probably the most obvious question? Uh, what is Molecular U?
It's very self-descriptive, Brandon. It's basically getting a molecular profile of you as an individual. And so what that entails is from a single draw of blood, we convert that to plasma, and then we do quantitative analytics of proteins and metabolites that circulate in your blood. The advantage of blood is it gives us a window to your health through various organs because the blood bathes every organ in your body. And so by quantitating substances in your blood, we can get a deep insight. Now, you mentioned at the outset that people are already doing this in sort of a diagnostic form. Our goal as an organization has really been to identify those high value biomarkers, proteins, and metabolites that can see disease at its earliest inflection point, and thereby identifying disease trends or risks trends prior to any symptoms appearing. And then the quantification is just part of the story. We then have to make sense of all of that data, and so we've worked very hard at taking all the world's literature, everything we know about these biomarkers, and compiling it into our data systems, and identifying these patterns that help us really identify when these changes are occurring at the earliest moment so that we can support individuals in staying healthy. So you can think of it as a health management tool based on evidence. And then that evidence is also applied to how can we make things better. And this is where we think the collaboration with a group like Revive is ideal, because we can make some recommendations and you can refine them and help people implement. So yeah, that's pretty much Molecular in a nutshell.
Yeah, I'm curious because I know, and I've had this conversation with a few people already. The value that Molecular U brings in, of course, the test itself, and then in what you can do with that information early stage. Um, a good thing to ask, and I know, I mean, I would imagine a lot of people have on their minds, is how does molecular you compare to other tests that may be available? So there, I mean, there's like genetic tests, of course, standard blood work. I alluded to that a little bit earlier. But where does molecular you fit alongside the other options that are available, whether or not they're comparable?
Yeah. Well, there's somewhat there's absolutely comparable. I mean, there's definitely overlap, but we're unique in our efforts to really pick up disease at its earliest moment in real time. And so genetics can be quite useful. One of the challenges we have with genetics is a lot of our understanding of gene variants are associations with disease, and so it doesn't really get deep into the biology. The other challenge is that it's risk over a lifetime, and how do you measure risk over a lifetime? It's very challenging, and most genetic variants, many of them can be compensated for. We may have more expression of maybe of an enzyme that's less active, or other enzymes or other proteins may take over or support the one that's variant. So just having a variant doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to manifest. The biology is much more complicated, and um, so with you don't get that time, you also don't get that spatial. You don't actually know where or when those genetics, where those genes are going to be expressed necessarily, and there's very hard to follow up on it. So if you've made some changes based on your genes, your behaviors, how do you measure that? So there aren't always the tests. Where what we're doing is we're really looking at those active ingredients of your genes, the proteins. So your genes express proteins, and the proteins perform every biological function, other than sort of lipid membranes that create walls and have signaling as well. But we look at those as well through metabolites. And the advantage of metabolites is that we're measuring activity of the proteins or biological systems, and not only our own biological systems. We can pick up the metabolites that are generated by organisms that are occupying our space, like the gut microbiome, which can produce metabolites that then get into our bloodstream and have profound effects on our behavior or our health. So it's it's a very holistic look at it too. So we're not, and what you do with with diagnostics, you tend to have symptoms to begin with, and diagnostics are primarily used to support practitioners in evaluating their hypothesis to help them understand or clarify what's exactly going on. And it's usually done subsequently. If they ask one question, they do a test, they do ask another question, they do another test. And so it can take a very long time, to get to the answer. And it's really there to support what the doctor believes is going on. Where we're much more holistic, we try to take a more comprehensive approach to it. So every time we will measure for cardiovascular, metabolic, cancer risks, all of these things, all in one test. And so it's basically a non-hypothesis driven test that will pick up based on the evidence where your risks might be. And we don't, you can't really do that without symptoms, so you can't really narrow down. So when you're symptom free, you need to take a broader approach. But we found it quite useful too, even in helping care for patients. So there's a lot of utility to the platform, but I think the difference between those other assays is the comprehensive nature of it, the actionability of it, and being able to work without symptoms.
Yeah, that's actually that's a huge point, because I know like a lot of folks that are looking at certain tests, they're like something is wrong now, and I heard you say that like things could be going on, things don't have to be going on for molecular you to be valuable, but of course it could support that. I think the preventative nature, looking earlier, and I know a lot of the folks that we see at Revive, I mean, they may have a diagnosis. I mean, a lot of the people that I work with, they it's they're not they're not at that stage. They want to avoid that stage. They want to not go down that road at all. And of course, our tools that we have to understand where, their current biology, their current physiology, whatever we have in our minds at that point, is we can make the best decisions with nutrition and fitness, and lifestyle and mindfulness and all these things. And then that will put people in a good position into the medium and long term health wise. But aside from, standard blood work, and body composition analysis, even how do we actually know what's going on internally? There's this whole, and of course there's, I don't want to oversimplify it, but there's a whole like area that's like just kind of question mark in the blind. We're kind of blind to it unless we have access to something like this, I suppose.
Absolutely. And what works for one individual isn't necessarily going to work for another individual. And when we're practicing, whether it be as a physician or nutrition, we work with population information, and so we apply what works for most to our clients or our patients. So that what we're really able to do with the molecular analysis is get quite specific to what care path is going to be most appropriate, and then and like as you mentioned, then you can retest it to see if it's actually working for you. And then once you get that nice equilibrium, then you can go on and do an annual assessment. I can give you a good example. We were looking at some populations at risk for dementia, but also those that were suffering from dementia, and those with mild cognitive impairment. And as we were primarily focused on Alzheimer's disease risk, and what we determined was that there are at least three endotypes, three ways that people can develop Alzheimer's disease. You can have oxidative stress mechanisms that inflammation that could be acting out. You can have metabolic disruptions to things like your neurotransmitters that make the systems in your central nervous system unstable, or you can have dyslipidemia, and they're very clearly stratified populations. The advantage now is that we can say, well, for the oxidative stress and inflammation, we want to go this care path, and for those with the metabolic disorders, it's completely different. So, and then for the dyslipidemia again, it's different again, and now we've got the best path forward for each one of those groups, and then we can test. We can go back and see if the interventions, whether they be nutritional or medical, can be tested. Is it working? Is the patient benefiting?
Right, because I think like the other, because there's one thing to have a test with information, but I know the molecular U platform takes all of that, because not everybody's an expert in all of those pathways and what they look at and what their purpose is. You take that information and distill it down to what does this mean? What conditions could you kind of group together? What's the action plan? And of course, that's where we can come in, Laura and I, as
Absolutely.
dietitians.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that's where I'm so excited by working together with the group at Revive. You have so much expertise on how to really refine that plan so that people get exactly what they need, and support them with how they can change their nutritional patterns, and promote them, support them, give them those impetuses that they need to keep going. But one of the things we found too that can support you, I think, is when you make those changes in nutrition and people see their health improving, they're going to stick with it. I mean, I'm a prime example. I was quite a reluctant believer in molecular U when I first started, and I had these risks that were cardiovascular. I train a lot. I was playing water polo, 2 hours every night, and was in good shape. So I couldn't see, well, how could I have any cardiovascular risk? But my diet was a disaster. I was a high red meat intake guy, but I did love my beef coming from Alberta, living in Europe, and so I got some bad habits, and when I changed my diet, it all went away, and I've been able to maintain my new diet, which is more vegetable forward, a lot more seafood. I still have, a steak now and again, but certainly not like I used to. And my risks have all gone away, and I've been able to manage it, keep the exercise up, of course, but it just makes you feel a lot more confident as we age that you're going to age healthy and not have these horrible cardiovascular events that haunt us as we age.
I think I can kind of relate to that too, or it can be expanded to even just women's health as well, because I know a huge thing that I've personally experienced, but also a lot of people that I work with is diagnosis like PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome. That's something that flies under the radar quite a lot. And so, even if it's not like, getting that diagnosis from molecular you, like it's something that I was diagnosed with when I before I did the molecular you test. um, but it gives good indicators on like, okay, what is your risk, because we know that that comes with increased risk of certain heart disease and insulin resistance and things like that. So it is very actionable, where like you really never get any intervention in the doctor's office, from what I hear in my own personal experience, on like how to prevent some of those risks for sure, until it's a little bit too late sometimes.
Yeah, and then you're absolutely right. I mean, it's so the polycystic ovarian syndrome is actually affects a lot of women and goes unnoticed, like you say. And so the earlier we can detect it, the more effective the outcome's going to be. I mean, we know that from every disease, and so if you can correct it, you get that on that corrective course with lifestyle changes, that's much less invasive and potentially harmful than medicines. And so, yeah, I applaud you, and yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, women's health is fascinating anyway because we've done such a poor job as a health community in understanding women's health, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Menopause itself is something that's very really unique to humans, and other than there's a few whales, but harder to study whales than humans. So we're excited by what molecular you can do to support women, and I mentioned the Alzheimer's earlier. Two-thirds of the Alzheimer's disease patients is made up of women, and recent indications are that some of that is related to the changes that occur in menopause. And so if we can manage those changes much better, examine whether estradiol therapy is being productive or destructive, and really help women go through those phases, as well as pick up any sort of nasty cancers along the way. I mean, I think this is a great platform to really support women throughout their lives, and we can all just learn from it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's another really cool example that I think I heard, is that in one of you guys' kind of case studies, that you're able to kind of identify early signs of cancer, which is an area that I work in as well. So that was pretty cool to see too, for a really prevention approach.
Mm. I mean, this is one of our favorite stories because it's so impactful. I know Burton, who has been featured a great deal. Diane Ballin, who was one of our early adopters and wanted to get a molecular U assessment annually to stay healthy. And in her fourth assessment, we detected that a lot of her biomarkers were out of range, and they were biomarkers that in our alignments indicated, the patterns that we're looking at indicated that she had a high risk for pancreatic cancer. And if you know anything about pancreatic cancer, it's considered one of the more deadly cancers, very, very poor success rates, but primarily because, like any cancer, it gets detected late, and so it's much harder to treat. But it's also a very aggressive cancer. And so when we did the analysis, we shared this with our practitioner, and our practitioner took treated it like a vital sign and had imaging performed, and the imaging indicated these small lesions on the lobes of her pancreas, and so they had to perform a needle biopsy, and it indicated it was stage 1 pancreatic cancer. And in fact, when we looked at the histology, it was right on the borderline of being precancerous, and so it was the earliest possible moment you could detect it. And it was a very aggressive form of cancer. We were seeing things like signs of angiogenesis, metastasis, all of these things in this tumor that looked pretty innocuous. But that's probably something we're learning about pancreatic cancer, is it incredibly aggressive at a very early stage. And so she had surgery, and the surgery they were able to remove the lesions, and right after the surgery she looked fine. She took some time to recover, but we measured her biomarkers, and most of them went back to the normative ranges, and the year after, she seems to be perfectly healthy. So we're very encouraged by that, and I think the reason that we're able to pick it up is because we do a functional analysis. We have about 53 biomarkers currently that pick up really the tenets or the hallmarks of cancer, and so by measuring their activity, it's much easier to do it. I guess where I was at was I wanted to explain a little bit about why I think it's working for us, and because we measure the functional elements of biology, and particularly around those tenets or those things that drive cancers and maintain cancers, so we can pick that activity up even before the cells start to slough off that you would be able to do a liquid biopsy with. So again, it's a good differentiator from other tests. And the what we like a lot about it is what we were primarily focused on with Diane was to keep her healthy. And so when that sinister cancer appeared, we were able to identify it very quickly. And she herself says she won the lottery. Without our tests, she probably would not be alive today.
Well, I mean, even thinking like, I guess Laura, you're going to be a better person to answer this than me. But like in terms of what I hear about people and their experience with cancer, I rarely hear of somebody saying the words, "I got caught at stage one," like it got picked up at stage one or some variation of that. Like I don't hear that often.
I mean, especially with pancreatic cancer, like you said, Rob, that's unfortunately one that like you don't really experience many symptoms of until very late stage, and that's why it's so hard to treat. So yeah, that's really amazing. And I would say, as much as we can win the lottery related to any type of cancer diagnosis, that's probably it for sure.
We've done it with other cancers. So we've got a client now that we're a bit concerned about. And we've had breast cancer, somebody with recurrence that we picked up and were able to, they were a physician in that case, so we're able to alert them. But I mean, it's amazing to be able to do that, and we're starting to, with our next release, we'll be going much deeper into cancers and be able to understand more cancers. I will say though, that we're terrible on prostate cancer. We've had a couple of clients that have developed prostate cancer, and we didn't see anything that was different. So there's still a lot of work to do on the platform, and there's other conditions that we're still, we're working well with Alzheimer's disease, but we haven't made much inroads in things like Parkinson's, which we should also be able to pick up earlier and try to change those factors that could be driving it. With Alzheimer's, we know that behaviors are really important in having those pro-inflammatory events or those oxidative stress events when they hit our central nervous system can result in the beta amyloid plaque formation. So we, picking that up, those factors that are driving that earlier and correcting them is so key to keep maintaining our health.
Yeah, I think as you've talked, and this is one key thing that I've had in my mind as we've had our partnership grow over the past, I don't know how many months, a year, I can't remember, is is for me, I mean, both as a practitioner, as a clinician, and then also as an individual who has done the test as well, is there's that like odd middle ground of like something feels weird, but I don't know what, or even like in Diane's case where everything feels fine, but like there's, like we've said, there's so many things that could be happening that you won't necessarily feel until it's too late. And of course, I feel like most people listening slash watching could agree with me that it would probably be ideal to catch it before that point. But the thing is that there's nothing reliably tangible that you can do that will tell you there's something that is going to happen or you're on that trajectory to developing some condition. It's most things that I've come across, it's all just like, it's either hypothetical or it's risk driven, like what we talked about with genetics. And whereas this is very much like, this is the current state of you and how you're functioning. And obviously there's limitations, like you mentioned, depending on the condition, and that's rapidly expanding, I feel like, from an outsider's perspective. But it actually says this is what's going on. Like, obviously you have whatever background information about somebody's history and what they're doing and past conditions, and if you have genetics, cool, all those types of things. But then you have very specific information about what's going on right now. If you have multiple measurements, then you can, of course, tell a better story. But that fills a pretty massive gap that otherwise I feel like both sides, both clinician and patient, client, individual human, would be going, I don't know, I guess we'll see what happens, kind of thing. Like, what a crappy place to be. Like, oh, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, it's like living blind. I mean, we really do give that visibility that really hasn't been possible without this kind of comprehensive analysis. We had another client a bit like along those lines, and he'd been seeing his doctor a number of times, and he'd had some issues when he was younger. He'd been a heavy drinker and substance abuse. And he was worried about his health, particularly his liver. But when he did the standard analysis, nothing really popped up. And when we performed our analysis, we actually found that not only was his liver being affected, but he had some high arteriosclerosis risks, and many of his biological pathways were disrupted. And so the biggest one, having that stressed liver, and you never want to really be pushing your liver that far. And he thought he'd basically got everything under control, but things that we measure, which are somewhat outside the norm, we do measure some of the normal things as well to give us some benchmarks, but we were able to really give him a path to better health. And he's so appreciative because he'd been going to his doctor for years, and they just weren't able to pick up why he had this sort of strange sense of not feeling great. And it turned out he was a pretty high risk for a TIA or a heart attack. So now he's changing those behaviors, and we'll be following up and making sure that he stays well. But you need to have that in-depth analysis, and it's a little outside of practice, right? Because most doctors want to narrow it down to one thing, right? They become very reductive in their approach, and that's worked well, but we still miss a lot. And then had we done that with someone like Diane, we would have missed the cancer completely, because she had a few cardiovascular issues that we tried to optimize. But if we not keep testing everything through our platform, we would never have picked up the pancreatic cancer. So, and we can't know, I mean, because things are so interconnected in our system. So when we start having inflammatory events, they can affect not only our gut, our cardiovascular system, our brain. I mean, it's everything. And so different systems get stressed in different ways. And so if you're not monitoring all the systems, you're working blinded. And I think the beauty of our test is that we can do all of that pretty affordably. I mean, if you look at the cost per analyte, it's a buck or so, right? I mean, it really isn't very much. And if you were to do that in any other system, it'd be $50, $60, $100 for some tests. So from one test, you're getting almost 300 tests, so $2 a test. That's pretty good value for money.
And if you think about like the time that it takes, and like just to run with that example, like molecular you got one test, you go in, take some blood, and it's not a lot of blood. You got one shot, done. You got all those tests, all those biomarkers, versus if you were to do it another way, where it's like you do one blood test or one diagnostic of some sort, be it an image, whatever the case, and then that gets analyzed, and then you're like, oh, we should go explore this one. Okay, you go back and do another one, so now you got to book more time off work or whatever the case there, and then rinse and repeat however many times until you arrive at whatever solution or path that you feel like is what you were looking for, whatever answer that you were looking to answer the question with. But I mean, that's just not sustainable. I mean, because you think about that at scale for one person, for a family, like that's just bonkers.
Yeah, and think about how hard it is to get to see a practitioner now, right? To make that order for that test and to review that test. And so one of the advantages of having these these results put in front of you in a way that you can understand them and review them yourself, it activates you. You become a participant in your own health, which I think is where we really have to turn the corner, particularly in Canada. I think too many people are too reliant on their practitioners, their doctors, to tell them exactly what they should be doing, and nobody cares more about your health, or nobody should care more about your health than yourself. So why not learn about your health, know where you're at, know what you need to do, know what works for you, and don't worry about others, what works for them, unless you're supporting them, of course. But you need to know what's right for you, and I think that's where we have another huge ability to differentiate ourselves in the market.
Yeah, I agree. Laura, you have thoughts? You're unmuted. I'll let you go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's a little bit of where we come in, and just my experience with working with clients is there is that frustration with um, their doctors sometimes. Like, we're not able to really pinpoint what's going on. They don't feel great. But by all tests that we can kind of do in the doctor's office, or that's ordered, they're perfect, healthy human beings, kind of thing, right? So I like what you said, Rob, with how it's putting kind of the power in the client's, the individual's hands to be able to actually participate in their health and disease prevention and all of that stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, to your point about, that I have this weird sense that something's not right, but all my tests come back and they're fine. But we had a lady that we did not so long ago, and she did the same thing, and it turned out that we were able to pick up there was this emergent autoimmunity. So she was in the middle of developing rheumatoid arthritis and some other autoimmune effects. So, um, you know, sometimes you need to listen to those weird things and keep digging. We're not done digging. As I say, we're going to expand our biomarkers and try to shed more information on where your biology's at, so you can take the right actions. But figuring it out is so important, and then following up, measuring it, giving people metrics. I think that's the other part of it. When you have that weird sense of something's not right, but I can't measure it's tough. So giving people more metrics, I think, is really where we need to be headed. And I don't know if you guys have been reading some of these articles by PwC and Deloitte that are saying that we can save, in the U.S. alone, $500 billion a year by keeping people out of the system, keeping them healthy, practicing preventive care. I mean, isn't that obvious to everybody? And why is Canada such a slow adopter in all of this? That's what I want to know.
Well, I think that we position ourselves I mean, with molecular U at least. Um, I think, anyways, and alongside what we do as at registered dietitians and at Revive Wellness is giving people the tools, empowering people to do what they do best and taking care of themselves, and instead of just doing a test of sorts to give the results, but then don't have any context. You don't have any way of accessing that information, understanding that information at whatever level that the people want, because it can be an overview, just kind of simple, kind of tippy top looking down, or it can be like you can dive in as far as you want. But giving the people the ability to do that, and they're in the driver's seat of all of that, and then they're looking at it, they're responsible for it. We bypass some of these logistical challenges of having to do like numerous tests to even find out what's going on. Now people can kind of poke and prod and understand themselves better in a way that I feel like was challenging to do, and sometimes, depending on where people are located, damn near impossible. Like for folks that are in smaller towns, like it's really difficult to find specialty care, to even find those answers to begin with.
And I think that that's such a strong message to give, is that you don't have to wait. You can start to take action now, and you should take action. The earlier, the better. My kids are young adults, and they really love knowing where they're at now, because as they age, they've got that pegged because that's where they need to stay the rest of their lives. I mean, if you, to me, that's just like exactly what you want to do. Just, hey, I'm in great health right now. This is what my profile is. I've got these metrics, measure myself annually to make sure I keep there. And when something goes awry, you're right on top of it and you can start to take action. And it just makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, part of my background, I should share with you, has been in the drug industry, and I've done new pharmaceuticals most of my, well, probably half of my professional career now. But it's exciting and it's worthwhile, without a doubt. But no medicine is 100% safe. Yeah. So I should have mentioned this earlier, but I spent most of my career really in the pharmaceutical and biotech industry, identifying new targets for drug discovery and then developing these into drugs. And the thing I've learned most is that while we can intervene with disease processes, it's never a clean shot, and there's no drug that doesn't have some risk, and so all drugs operate within a therapeutic index. So relying on drugs as a form of managing disease is fine it's really meant as a last resort. I think there's just so many more things that we can do leading up to that point, and using tools like Molecular U and working with nutritionists like the team at Revive is really a much better way to manage our health. And that's what we should think about it, managing health rather than waiting for sickness to appear before we take action. So if we properly manage our health through nutrition, through lifestyle, and we provide those metrics so we can know how things are working, I think it's just going to be better for everybody individually. It's better for our practitioners because their workload is going to be less and they can concentrate on more bigger problems, and our costs will go down because it costs a fortune to take care of the sick. It's much less expensive to manage your health. So that's what I hope we can achieve together, and I'm super excited to be part of your team.
I'm excited too, man. I can't see what comes with this, and I can't wait to actually get it in people's hands on our side and see what happens. I can't wait.
Yeah. Well, let's not wait. Let's get people using it as soon as we can.
Let's get her going. Very good. Well, thank you so much, Rob, for joining us. I'm sure there will be at some point a follow up conversation to this because there's just so much to unpack with it. But I appreciate you taking some time. I know you're a busy guy, and talking to us about what Molecular U is and what it can do, the potential, what has happened. I mean, there's impact already happening. We're not like building to it. It is already happening right now.
Yeah, and I think we're ready for it. I mean, as a people, as a population, we need to take control of our health, and now's the time. Um, we're not getting any younger.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Cool. All right, Rob. We'll let you go. Laura and I will finish up the episode, and yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so
Yeah, I
much.
really appreciate you guys doing this with me. Thanks so much. I hope you're able to get something out of all these chunks and chops and so on.
Lots of good bits.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. We'll talk again soon. Bye for now.
Yeah, how cool is that? I mean, it's tough to see because I mean we're just entering into this world with Molecular U. Of course, they've seen a lot more on their side, being obviously the creators of it. But I mean, I can see the huge potential for us. I come back to the thing of continuously. There's so many things that I feel like people feel and are curious about that I just particularly in the private sector, but even if I was in the public system, would just wouldn't have access to like the standard tests. Like there's just so much more information to get that could help people than I just am sitting there scratching my head going, well, what do we do next? We did all the right things, but something clearly is not it's not right, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, part of me is just thinking that this could be so useful and just helpful for a lot of people who just like maybe are dealing with a lot of health anxiety because they haven't had their needs met within traditional healthcare avenues, right? Like if something is wrong. And so if we can answer some of those questions through this, um, whether we find something that we need to pay attention to or not, then that can probably provide a lot of comfort and action for people going forward. So it is very exciting for sure.
The amount of gaslighting that may not happen.
Oh God, please.
Yes. For those of you that have made it this far in the episode, thank you very, very much for making it this far. We're just getting started with this, with Molecular U at Revive here. So if you're curious about how it would work if you were to get this test from us, please check out our website. We have some information on there, but it is very, very simple. And I don't want to obviously oversell the simplicity of it, but it's you pick up test kit from us. You take test kit to lab in there's some select labs around Edmonton and Calgary that do these types of tests, and that list is only growing. And we obviously can provide feedback to Molecular U to expand that. So you get test kit, you take to lab, you get sample taken, which is like any other blood test. I would say probably in some cases simpler.
Only 2 blood vials, which is amazing.
It's not much, um, and then you're done. And then you walk out, and then you wait 4 to 6 weeks or so, at least at the current. That's the length of time to wait for your test results to come back, which is pretty standard for a specialty test like this, I think. And then we have all that information. We'll work through that information with you, talk about it with you, help you understand it, so then you can know what to do with it, whether you're working with us at Revive or you end up going and doing things on your own. But nonetheless, we'll be here to help you navigate it. But it is, I don't want to say it's as simple as body composition analysis. That's depending on the type of body composition analysis you're getting. But the appointment probably is about the same length. It's like 10 minutes, not even. I thought, anyways. Yeah. So many more things that we could go into. Any last thoughts, Laura, before we wrap up the episode?
No, I feel like I learned stuff from Rob today and it was very interesting. But yeah, I'm excited to see where we can take this and hopefully help lots of people take control of their own journey. So that's really exciting.
Yep. Help you take care of you. Um, well, at least at the current state right now, when we release this episode, we have 3 complimentary Molecular U tests that we're giving away to folks. We do ask that we do a review alongside of it. So we'll provide the test kit for free as a complimentary test kit to you. And then we'll do a 50-minute review session with you that comes at a cost of 100 and, I need to double check if it's 100 and
I thought I saw 200, but
at a cost of $200 to you. So heavy discount. Depending on when you're watching or listening to this, though, if it's far into the future, then those complimentary test kits may have been taken. But if you're one of those folks that listens to our episodes soon after they come out, then please contact us. Go to our website, revivewellness.ca. We'll throw a link in the description box down below so you can find it easily. And then we can show you what it's all about. But for now, why don't we leave the episode there for today? I learned something, Laura. I agree with you. I learned something today. I hope everybody watching and listening learned something about if not Molecular U, other options for things that you can do to take control of your health. Helping you take care of you is our motto here. Anything we can do to empower people to help live a better life is the name of the game. So thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
bye.